Life After the Rams with Colin Gibson.
Welcome to episode 15 of Life After the Rams. Today we're joined by a forward who arrived with fire in his boots and never once dialed it down, Jamie Ward. From explosive moments in a Derby shirt to a career that took him across the Championship into big pressure games and onto the international stage, Wardy's journey is anything but quiet. Life After the Rams is supported by 7 Restaurant and Café Bar in Derby and RamsTrust, the Derby County Supporters Society, established to promote good governance and fan engagement. They welcome new membership applications from all supporters. Just visit ramstrust.org.uk/membership for further details.
Life After the Rams with Colin Gibson.
Jamie, great to chat to you and catch up after, well, it's been a while. Some stories of our days when we were both at Derby. Maybe we'll come to some of those. I guess, first of all, we have to say, how are things for you at the moment? Because you made the decision to move out and work in Dubai, and it's clearly been in the news recently.
Yeah, obviously, like you say, you've seen the news and stuff like that, but it's not as bad as what the news is making out. So, obviously, there's still missiles and stuff going over the top of us, but the military here have handled it ever so well. I think there's nearly 2,000 missiles and drones that have been fired now from Iran, and none have actually got through. So anything that's making or causing any damage is debris from missiles or drones being shot down. So it's not as bad as what the Western media is making out. I think there's a bit of a propaganda against this place because they don't want to lose high net worth people and because they lose a lot of tax money. So, but today, for instance, I've been to the beach. Well, since day 1 and 2 was probably a little bit hairy because it's something that you're not used to. And then after that, it was fine. So you just learn you learn to deal with it. You adapt, don't you, in those situations? And especially when you have kids, you can't show them that obviously you're worried and it's the scary times ahead and stuff like that. But like I say, it isn't scary. I still feel much safer here than I would do in England.
Interesting. So was the one thing that sort of, I need a change?
Yeah, I went for a job at Derby, under 14s in the academy. So in the end, I was told I didn't have enough experience, which I totally get from a certain point of view that I don't have enough experience. But at that time, I'd managed Ilkeston. I'd shadowed at Villa with their 15s, 18s, 21s. I'd helped out at Burton with their groups as well. So I'd got a little bit of experience from that side of it. And I totally agree with them where I didn't have loads of experience, bundles of experience, probably what they was looking for at that moment in time to be the lead coach. But my experience, and like I said to them in my interview, my experience will be coming from when they're having a bad time on the pitch. So I know what that feels like. It's not easy to deal with. I know how to react. So I just know how it mentally can affect you at times where you keep trying to force things because you're having a bad game and you're trying harder and harder and harder rather than just going back to the basics and simple and building your way back into the game. So, and that was the decision that made me decide to come out here and have a change of scenery.
So did you go out there to play or to coach or do both?
So initially I came out just to coach. I had no interest in ever kicking a football ever again. But then once I got here, Joel Lynch had got in touch with me because he was playing for a club called Precision FC, they're owned by a British group. So I decided to go and train and see what it was like. And then they said, do you want to sign? So of course I got my buzz back for football and just went to play and really enjoyed my year there that I had. So scored goals. There's nothing better than scoring goals, is there, when you're a forward player? But the level of football actually isn't great. So the third division, which would be League Two in England, is really like step 3 of non-league football, probably step 4. So that was one of the reasons in my decision into actually playing the game, because I knew I could get away with it. I knew my ability would help me get away with it.
But then a chance to really do what you'd gone for, and that was coaching.
Yes, so I'd started the coaching before playing. So it's not in any pro. Well, it wasn't in any pro clubs or anything like that. It was just I had a friend over here that runs a coaching company. So I was talking to him, and he said, "Well, why don't you come over, see what you think of it? If you like it, then we'll sort something out." So, and in the end, I think when you get here and the sun's out, and it just puts that smile on your face straight away, doesn't it? Rather than being back home and 95% of the time it's miserable, isn't it? The weather. So, and I like the sun, and I like to have a suntan.
Sounds like the best place to be then. Do you envisage staying there? Is that where you see yourself staying?
Well, the plan is to obviously stay here, but some things are out of my control, and it just depends what happens with the kids and stuff like that. So they're the most important thing in all of this. So if the kids go back to England, then it kind of leaves me no choice but to go back to England and make sure I'm around them and support them. So if I had no kids, you would never see me in England again. So, but I have kids, so you might see me in England again one day.
That'd be good to say hello. All right, let's rewind now. Let's go back 20 odd years, and a young Jamie Ward gets his chance with Villa. But a moment in 2004 almost ended your ever having a football career.
Yeah, the car crash. So, you know, it's the thing that I look back on now. That's the thing that kept me in football. And it sounds absolutely ridiculous, but I'd have been released at the end of that season. So obviously when I had my car crash, I missed 4 months of the season. Before, I think it was either August or September when I had my car crash. Didn't play again until the January. I dislocated and fractured my elbow in multiple places, broken nose, had a severe laceration to my knee, but no real damage to the knee. So, well, no damage whatsoever, actually. So I was very fortunate to actually come away from the car crash walking. But then, obviously, my main worry then, once I'd come back around and my health was okay and stuff, was I've only got till the end of the season on my contract. So I went to see the academy director, Brian Jones, who obviously he'd been there for a long time. I'd been there since I was 9 years of age. So we had a good relationship, and I just went and spoke to him one day and said, obviously, I'm going to miss a lot of football. I'm worried that I won't be given a chance to show people what I can do this year. And he turned around, he said to me, listen, he said, you've been at this club a long time. He said, don't worry about it. He said, you'll get another year, because you're going to be out for a long time. He said, so just leave it with me. I'll make sure you get another contract and just focus on getting fit and getting ready for next season. So brilliant. Obviously, I was absolutely delighted, because that was one less bit of pressure on my shoulders for obviously my recovery and stuff. So then, anyway, fast forward that, I got back in the January playing, still with pain in my knee, because they had to staple it and stitch it all together. So it was just trying to get used to that, the uncomfortable side of that for the time being, till I adjusted again. And then I got pulled into, said Brian Jones come to get me. He's like, the manager wants to speak to you. And I thought, brilliant. I thought, this is one thing or another. You're either getting released, or he wants you to just focus on getting fit and you'll be with the first team for pre-season. Anyhow, it was the first one. Son, obviously, I know we've offered you a contract and stuff. He said, we're not going to take it away from you. He said, but I advise you not to sign it. You're not going to be with the first team or anything like that. So obviously, I was disappointed at the time. But then once I got home and I had time to think about it, speak with my parents and stuff, I knew then I had, from that March to the following, July when pre-season starts, to find myself a football career. So I had a little bit of security knowing that now it's about me, nobody else. It's not about the team. It's about what I can do and show people what I can do. And that was that really. And like I say, I still think to this day that was the thing that kept me in football, because I had that extra year's experience, the extra year's power, strength, whatever it is that you can think of that comes with getting a little bit older and a little bit stronger.
Who was the manager?
David O'Leary. So for me, no, I know I didn't like him. But that's probably because of what he done to me. I think that's natural. But when I used to train with the first team, there'd be, obviously he'd have his staff and stuff like that. And when you go and train with people like that, you raise your levels, and because you're nervous as well, you don't want to let them down, and you don't want the first team players to think you're no good. And I always performed to a very good level. Looking back for an 18-year-old, it was a very good level. And then there was one day where Lee Hendry nutmegged me, but he didn't get the other side of me to get the ball. And at the end of the session, O'Leary dragged, that was the one thing that he said. Bearing in mind, I'd done really well in training and stuff like that. And then his assistant manager, Ray Aiken, said to me, he actually turned around to me and said, "You was the best in training today." It's that's something that the manager should be saying. And then the assistant manager should be backing that up, saying X, Y, Z, and whatever he wants to add to it. But it weren't. It was with O'Leary, it was more of the negative. But I think for him, my size was a factor. Because to start with, Stephen Davis had the same kind of thing. He was always told he was too small to play in O'Leary's teams, but then they got an injury crisis. And Davo was on the bench, I think it was Norwich away. He put him on the pitch, done really well. And then he never looked back. He ended up winning player of the season, and he was David O'Leary's best player. But he only got on the pitch because he was forced to put him on the pitch. So obviously it worked in Davo's favour. But you've very rarely seen David O'Leary sign a small player, did you?
Interesting. So how did you move it on and deal with the fact that, because Villa were your team, weren't they? Or probably still are.
Yes, yeah.
So how did you deal with that? And okay, I've had the car crash. I've been told I'm going to get the contract. Then you get the kick in the teeth. So you're still a relatively young lad. What did you do to move it on?
Well, the afternoon I was told, the day I was told, I had to go back out and train in the afternoon. So my reserve team manager at that time was Kevin MacDonald. And Kev was amazing for me since I'd met him from being there from a 15-year-old. He was brilliant because he was just straight, direct and honest. That's what I like. And that he didn't even know I'd been in for a meeting with the manager. So he didn't know what was going on. So anyhow, I had to go out and train in the afternoon. And as you could imagine, the head's a bit frazzled. It's all over the place. And my bottom lip come out and I started booting balls everywhere. And I got the team punished. We had to do a lap round the pitch in a minute and stuff like that. And he had no idea. But then when I got home, obviously I got home, told my dad, and I just broke down crying. My dad was on the phone to Craig Gardner and Gary Gardner's dad at the time. And I walked in and they'd had good news about one of them was going to get a contract or something like that. And then obviously he looked at me and I just looked at him. I said, I've been told I can leave. And then I obviously broke down crying. But then my dad spoke with Kevin MacDonald and Kev was like, I had no idea that they'd spoke to him. He said, now I know why he was the way he was this afternoon. He said, if he'd have told me, I'd have just sent him home. So obviously there's nothing Kevin can do, but I still felt like I'd let him down. And because we'd been there such a long time, as obviously my dad committing to take me all the time, he had that relationship where he could pick up the phone to them and just have a chat. And so did I deal with it well? I think, yeah, the initial probably first 7 days was probably tough because I was walking into a building knowing that I'm gone, I'm being released and stuff like that. Then I've got other lads saying, oh, you'll be the next one out on loan. They didn't know. They've told me I could be released. So, and in the end, I had to tell them. I was like, no, I said, they've told me I can leave. So, and they thought I was joking. But I suppose that is part of football. That was my only setback I had in football from the age of when I joined Villa at 9. My first real setback, apart from the car crash, was at the age of 18, 19. So quite fortunate in that aspect.
But you got loans and events, and that led to league debuts and so on, and then on to Torquay.
Yes. So my loan move was to Stockport. First ever career goal was against Joe Hart. Yeah, Joe Hart, that was you. Picked that one out of the net, mate. Stockport versus Shrewsbury. Didn't know how to celebrate. Had no idea how to celebrate. Top was coming off, then it was on and stuff like that. And I done all right there. Dealt with the League Two physical side of things all right. And then at the end of that season, I had a choice of Torquay, Stockport or Wrexham. So loved my time at Stockport. My only concern was Jim Gannon wouldn't always play me, even when I was on loan. Granted, the team was in a relegation battle. So looking back now as an older player, ex-player, you kind of understand it a little bit more. But at the time, I didn't want to understand it because all I wanted to do was play football and get better and play as hard as I could. So in the end, I decided to sign for Torquay because Ian Atkins, fellow Brummie, he knew how far it was away from home for me. And the one thing that won me over is for Stockport, we played against Torquay and they absolutely passed us off the park. They battered us. And Torquay were bottom of the league at that point. And then Ian got on the phone and stuff like that. And he said, listen, I know how far it is away from your parents. He said, so if there's ever a day where you're feeling homesick or down or whatever, pick the phone up, tell me, and I will never stop you getting in the car or on the train to getting back home. So that was something that sat well with me, and he thought about the person rather than himself, which goes a long way in football, especially for a young player. But I never picked up the phone to him once, just got on with it, done my job, and I scored 11 goals by January in the League Two team that was struggling. So then there was a bit of noise around clubs wanting to sign me. Chesterfield was obviously one of them. They had the chance to sign me for a free in the summer, that summer previously, but they said, it's too small, not sure how we'll deal with it. Then they paid 100 grand or something like that 6 months later. So I also had like Leyton Orient, Wickham, MK Dons. So those four coming for me at the same time. And Wickham probably would have been perfect because Paul Lambert was the manager at the time. And the way that they spoke and stuff like that was really, really good and like sat really well with me. And the only thing that stopped me going there is they was still in League Two and Chesterfield were League One. So then obviously from there, with Chesterfield, I lasted 3 games and I'd done my first ever hamstring injury.
I seem to remember, Jamie's done his hamstring. Oh, okay, yeah. It became your bit of mixing metaphors here, slightly your Achilles heel.
I think I was the one that got Ryan McFarlane the sack because he paid money for me and because he was Chesterfield manager. So he paid money for me and I got injured after 3 games.
You moved to Chesterfield, as you say, and Roy was the one who signed you. And that's sort of where I started to hear your name being mentioned a lot, because Roy, obviously ex-Derby, and there was talk of you coming to Derby. That didn't happen, but that's really where you got noticed, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Again, it goes back to, it doesn't matter who you play for. If you're scoring goals at a young age, you're going to get noticed. Even more so in this day and age. Back then, it wasn't known as much where someone would take a gamble on a young lad, would they? As much as what they do now. So, yeah, I got there. I've done, obviously, I had the hamstring injury after 3 games. I scored my first goal. Then got the hamstring injury about 10 minutes later, which obviously was disappointing because we was in a relegation battle. And obviously I was there. I was signed to score goals for them and try and help them stay up. So obviously at the time disappointing, but that was my first ever experience of, apart from the car crash, of injury. So now this was a football injury, it wasn't a road accident. So how did I deal with it? Just because I'd never had anything like it before, just got on with it. It was everyday life. Obviously, the hamstring had hurt if I twisted the wrong way and stuff like that, but eventually it comes back, and I think I got in the last few games of the season, but I just wasn't at the races, obviously, to score goals or to try and save the club. But that's just one of those things. And then we ended up, obviously, we had Lee Richardson, who was the assistant under Roy, that then took over at the end of the season. And I think that even that second season, I probably still hadn't got right, and I'd done my hamstring again. I'd done it against Sheffield United, actually, in the Cup. I had a really tight hamstring during the warm-up and from the weekend's game. But I told the physio and masseur, whatever, that it's tight, but there was no way I was going to pull out of that game because of who it was. So, and I think I got an assist that night, but then I pulled my hamstring. I think I assisted Jack Lester and again pulled the hamstring. So a little setback then. And again, I don't think I think once you have these injuries, you don't ever fully recover during the season because you're catching up now on fitness, you're catching up on sharpness and all of that goes with it. So I got going again at the end of that season. So it would have been my second full season. So I'd have been there at this point for 18 months. And it was that season that I really kicked on and hit the ground running. So, and I think it comes down to, not like I didn't work when I was in the off season. I always used to work and try and be strong. But for some reason, the season before that, everything just seemed to fall right and my body felt great. And then I went on and scored goals. I think I got 15 by, I don't know if it was January or December, but I was up there with the top goal scorers in the league. I think I might have been top, actually, because Grant Hall told me to stop scoring so he can catch me. So, but he's a wrestler now, so I probably should have listened to him at the time, shouldn't I? Otherwise he'd get me in a headlock or something.
So there was a chance to go to Barnsley, but it didn't work out. But you went into South Yorkshire and to Sheffield United. Again, another step up this time.
Yeah, so again, in the build-up to that, I heard whispers of Derby, Ipswich, Barnsley and Sheffield United. So, to be honest with you, we played Ipswich in the Cup the weekend before, and Jim Magilton told Darren Curry that he's going to put a bid in for me on the Monday morning. So obviously, Darren Curry tells me the bid never came. And it's like that. If you're not going to do it, don't say it, whatever. It was only, I think it was £340,000 I ended up being sold for. So anyhow, didn't materialise. Then I'd agreed to go and talk to Barnsley. Club had accepted an offer from Barnsley and I agreed to go and talk to them. And when they accepted the offer, that was it. My mind was set up. I was going to sign for a Championship club because I didn't know who else was going to come in with an offer. Then I got another call from DC the night before going, and he said, Sheffield United are coming in tomorrow. And I was like, is it happening? He's like, 100% they're coming in. They've rung me about you. They're going to put an offer on the table. They had to just sell James Beattie. So anyhow, I went and spoke to Barnsley, had the chat with them, and at the time, looking back, like the salary that they offered me wasn't much more than the new deal that Chesterfield had offered me. So, and I know that obviously for them it's a risk because I'm coming from League Two, which totally understand, but the offer in reality was a complete waste of time. And I totally get that they tried to get me on the cheap, but I just thought no. But in the back of my mind, I also had Sheffield United, and their offer wasn't much better, but they was going for promotion. Barnsley were in a mid-table relegation scrap. So, and again, going to Sheffield United, living in Chesterfield, I was 30 minutes from the training ground. So it all plays a part in it. And listen, no disrespect to Barnsley, but Sheffield United are a much bigger club.
Yeah, that was really the move, as I say, that sealed you and put your name out there. Got to Wembley in a playoff final. I think Wembley are probably trips you would want to forget. We haven't come on to Derby yet.
Yeah, it was one hell of an experience. Obviously, not getting sent off, that wasn't a great experience because it cost me money as well. Got fined for it. But I still think it was a soft sending off. 2 yellow cards for 2 handballs. There's the one where Matt Kilgallen's played a diag over the right side, their left-sided centre half. And I've just tried to lean and catch it between like my pec and my shoulder. And it's hit me on my bicep, and he's given me a second yellow card and sent me off for it. So, but it didn't help that it was Mike Dean. And it was like, if you just think about it, it's never a sending off, but Kevin Blackwell had a dig at him earlier in the season, went to do with a Sheffield derby, and then that could always have been in the back of his mind. We should have had 2 Stonewall penalties on one. I think one was Kyle Walker, one was Kyle Norton. Both got brought down in the box. 2 Stonewall penalties, just run away. So we had our backs to the wall from minute 1 anyhow, but it was a hell of a finish from Wade Elliott to win the game. So credit where credit's due. Burnley were brilliant that season, and they got over the line. Wembley, like you say, not the best of places for me, but one hell of an experience.
Absolutely. You played in many derbies, obviously Derby, Forest for both sides. We'll come on to that. But you also played in the Steel City derby, as they like to call it, and scored.
Yeah. Again, I started that season really well. I was suspended for the first, I don't know if it was the first 2 games, but I was suspended anyhow because I'd been sent off at Wembley in the final. So obviously I was chomping at the bit. Then I got back in the team. I'd scored 4 in 7. Obviously one was against Sheffield United. Then guess what happened?
Hamstring?
The hamstring went. So, and then after that, at that point, and it sounds absolutely mental, I was linked with a move to West Brom for £3 million. How true it was, I don't know, but sometimes these things are true, aren't they? What you read and hear. And I was linked with them for £3 million, and then that was before the Steel City derby, and then I'd done my hamstring, and again, just didn't get back to the level of where I was at before it, and then to be honest with you, my time at Sheffield United, I love my time there, but with obviously when Mickey Adams came in, it wasn't so great. So, and that was obviously when I ended up moving to the Rams.
Initially on loan?
Yes. So at the time, where was we? I think it might have been, well, it was February. So yeah, the transfer window had closed, but it was when you could loan players after January. So I moved, I think it might have been around like February the 15th or something like that, because I'd just had my oldest one, Hudson, who's now 15. So it was when Nigel was messaging me and trying to contact me. The ex-wife was in labour with Hudson, so which 15 years later, he's a lot taller than me, as you can imagine. It's not hard, but
I'm saying
yes, and Nigel was obviously in contact, and as soon as I said to him, "Sorry, like I'm in hospital with like having the little one," and he just messaged me back. He's like, "Don't worry about calling me back." He said, "Enjoy the experience. It's a great moment to be around."
What was Nigel like as a manager?
Loved him. For me personally, he was great. He put a lot of trust and faith in me, which I always thrived off. You know, I liked being important. I think we all do in football. We all like to be a key figure of the team and stuff like that. And I think that was one thing that Nigel made me. So, well, especially on the pitch anyhow. He knew I was a little bit loopy off the pitch, but that's totally fine. But he was great with me. I think he would be honest and straight when he seen that he needed to be honest and straight. And we all know Nigel, he didn't mix his words. He didn't mince his words, did he? He just bang. That's it. That's what I see. That's what you're having. And at times you'd go back at him, and then that's it. Done, dusted, fine. So you'd have your To be fair, I only ever went back at him twice, but that was due to the respect that I actually had for him, and like I say, I loved working under him. And I think where he gets you on board as a team and the team bonding is the little trips that he used to take us on. So I think you can see yourself there that on paper we wasn't a team to be feared, was we? But then once we'd all come together and we bonded, and we'd literally run through a brick wall for each other. And I think that showed on the pitch, so for quite some time.
One of the standout games for you and for him as manager was going back to his club where he was famous, and they really did love him, even though he was wearing a Derby top that day and Derby manager. And you managed to score a pretty good goal and pass your old mate Campy.
Yeah. Listen, I still feel, I still have that moment where should I have put the ball out because Chris Cohen was down injured. And then the other thing was, it didn't come into my mind till after the game, don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, we were still 10v10. Even though Chris was down, we was 10v10. And then I had Nigel saying play on. So listen, I'm going to listen to the manager and I'm going to get on and do my job. So yeah, a couple of them tried to hack me down, didn't they? I think Raddy Majusi would try to take me out, and then I think Chris Gunter thought there was nowhere I could go at that point where we was on the touchline, and luckily enough there was an opening where his legs had just opened, and I just thought, where am I going to go? But that's all I can do. Luckily enough, I just slid it through his legs and put it under Campy's foot. So he was too fat to get his foot back down, weren't he? Wouldn't move quick enough. So,
what did you say to him as it went in?
By the way, Campy's not fat, and he never has been fat, just for the record. No, nothing. I think in that moment you just wheel off, and that's it. It just becomes a bit of a bit of a haze around you. So because of the whole situation on it, Chris down and all of that, and then obviously I'm trying to celebrate. Matt Derbyshire's tried to grab me and stuff like that. But that's football. It's at the end of the day, it's a local derby, and these things happen. And like I say, the only one thing that I would take back from it is Chris Cohen being injured. I wish he didn't get injured in that moment.
Yeah, Steve McLaren, of course.
Not just in that moment. Sorry, just didn't get injured ever. So, but yeah.
Yeah, Steve McLaren, ironically, was Forest's manager that day, and for a couple of 3 years on from there, Steve McLaren replaces Nigel Clough as Derby's manager. What did you think when you were told the news?
Obviously, the news that Nigel was getting sacked, we was all pretty shocked. Because we'd all built such a good relationship with him and stuff. And
did you sense it might be coming?
We knew on the bus on the way back home, because it was after the Forest game, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So he said something to us on the bus, and he didn't say he's going to get sacked, but basically along the lines of, don't be surprised if it happens. And obviously later that evening it had happened, and then, yeah. So, listen, of course, we all felt terrible because nobody wants to see anybody lose their job. And I just think at that time that the club had a different vision in the way it wanted to go. I think you can tell by our reaction in the first half on the Tuesday night game against Ipswich that we was just all over the place mentally, emotionally, and I'm not sure that happens at many clubs. But in the end, I think the best thing that happened for Steve McLaren was him coming down at half-time of the Ipswich game, making changes, having a talk with us, and then bang. And I think we obviously got back into the game at 4-4. We drew 4-4. And I just think that probably made everyone go, okay, because we'd seen he got sacked from Forest. And then it was like, oh, okay, he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's on about. Of course, he knows what he's doing. He's managed England. He's been at Man United. He's had one hell of a managerial and coaching career. So everything that he seemed to do from then onwards for that year just seemed to click. His substitutions would come on and score when we needed a goal. All little things like that, tactics, like everything what he done, and it made the lads sit there and go, all right, yeah. And then literally from probably overnight, it turned us from a mid-table team to well, obviously we went and finished third and got in the playoff final. So he turned us into one hell of a team. But I remember seeing Nigel in the summer before the start of that season, and he was like, "We're going for promotion. We're not messing about." And I think Nigel created a really good team. Well, one hell of a team. I think obviously Steve come in and he added wisdom, Bamford, and players like that. But I think when you look back at the core of that team, it was all Nigel Clough's team. So, and I think people forget that, and I think Nigel should get a lot of praise for the job he actually done at Derby, and when it was a case of killing the budget and bringing it down from, what was it, 15 million or something like that, maybe more, 20 million, however much it was, to bringing it down to 8 million along those lines. And I don't think people know how hard it is. I think that would have been one of the lowest budgets in the Championship at the time. So I think he doesn't get the praise that he deserves for it. But then, like I say, Steve McLaren comes in and all of a sudden we just go on this trajectory that nobody probably ever thought we was good enough to do. And the more and more we play together, we've spoke before where I've said to you about we was happy to go 1-0 down. Going 1-0 down was like, oh, wow, now we need to pull our finger out and actually score some goals and play properly. And that was the kick up the backside that we need. Not needed, because we knew we was good enough. We could score 3, 4, 5 goals most games. We created enough chances. And we had Chris Martin up front, who was an absolute machine, weren't he? So, yeah, it was incredible.
But on a day where you needed a goal, it just never came. And I always use this term, the dagger in the heart, provided by one Bobby Zamora.
Yeah. Listen, I think we know at the end of the day that there's always got to be one loser, and we wish it's not us. I think I dealt with that a lot better because of my previous experience at Wembley. So I think I dealt with. I knew. It sounds terrible, but I knew what losing was like there, and it couldn't have been any worse than the last time because I got sent off as well. So, yeah, listen, did we deserve to lose by performance? Of course not. We absolutely battered them, and they know that. But we just didn't put the ball in the net, did we? Gary O'Neill, he took one for the team, and it paid off. And because Johnny Russell's through, and I fancy Johnny Russell to go and score when he gets in there. So disappointing, but it quite clearly wasn't meant to be, was it?
Was it ever the same again after that?
Yeah. So I think the next season we was even better until the news came out about Newcastle, and it was never shut down. And this was actually one of the things that I said. I was talking to Jeff Hendrick in the changing room at the time, and we'd seen it, we'd read it and stuff like that. And I said to Jeff, I was like, he needs to come out and say he's not going, because now all of a sudden it's going to create an uncertainty, and it never actually happened. And I think we've spoke to Steely and Simo in that since, and even Nave agreed, and Nave said we tried to tell him to do it. And I think the one thing that he should have been made to do was, even if it wasn't true, the hierarchy at the club should have said, if it's true or not, you're going out there and you're telling everybody that you're not going, you don't want to go there, you're focused on this job. But it didn't happen. And then obviously we exploded in, what was it, March? So the old March hits the Rams again, doesn't it? But still, even then, I think, what did we finished outside the playoffs that year, didn't we?
Yeah, was it
And
Reading on the last day?
yeah, they
Lost
absolutely
3-0.
battered us, didn't they?
Yeah.
But do you know what gets me? I think we won 2 of the last 12 games against the 2 bottom teams, but not much got changed in the way of it. So I think I started 1 game in all of that, from 12 games to the end of the season. I think I started 1 game, and that was Wigan away, and I got brought off at half time because I was terrible, and rightly so. I got brought off, and obviously I wasn't happy about it, as you can imagine. But at the end of the game, Chris Martin scores. At the end of the game, I go, good on manager, great substitution. But that should have been an easy game for, no disrespect to Wigan because they were struggling as well, but that should have been an easy game for us. But again, it goes back to there was still that uncertainty around everything, and and obviously we lost Chris Martin to injury, didn't we, at Bournemouth away, and that really affected us because him and Benty were 2 different players. Chris was obviously to feet, hold it up, bring people into play, whereas Benty wanted to run in behind and have balls slid in behind. So it was probably hard to adapt to at the time because as a winger, from myself, Johnny Russell, Simon Dawkins, Bamford when he played there, Lingard, Tom Ince, it was probably hard to mix it up because, especially for me, I would like to get the ball and look up, and if I can play forward into Chris, I'm playing it and trying to follow. I didn't have that option anymore, but I didn't play many games after that anyhow. So that was frustrating, really frustrating, because we was by far the best team in the league. On our day, we battered absolutely anybody, but then our day didn't come enough in the last 12 games of the season.
So in the end, you leave, and you like making decisions, don't you, that might raise a few eyebrows. But again, it's the old thing between football supporters and football players. A supporter never changes their allegiance, but for a football player, you have to go where the work is, even if it's
obviously. At the end of that season, I had Brighton, Sheffield Wednesday, Forest, Fulham, and QPR. Brighton was my first choice, as a whole club and infrastructure and stuff like that. My only worry about Brighton then was they had a bad season under Sami Hyypiä, and I just thought, is that the downfall, and they're going to go on that slippery slope? Then there was no way I was ever going to go to Sheffield Wednesday, even though I loved the manager, Stuart Gray. From my time, I met him at Villa when I was a kid and loved him there, and he's obviously followed my career all the way and tried to sign me. But I was never going to go there. So then obviously Forest in the end, they put on a 4-year deal, and I think I was 29 at the time. 4-year deals don't come around at 29. So for security of the family and the kids, and obviously a bit of longevity for me, then that was the right decision. So did it work out in the way I wanted it to? I had some good times there, but obviously I also had some bad times. But my thought process behind Forest, as well as the 4-year deal, was they've not reached their potential for a long time now. Within that 4 years, surely they have a chance of reaching the Premier League. So, it didn't happen, but that was my thought process behind it as well. And I didn't have to move the family, which is really important. I think like any parent, they don't want to be uprooting the kids. And if I went to Brighton, we're 3 hours away from both of our families again, and we're still in Derby. We're 45 minutes from our family. If there's an emergency, it's close enough to get somewhere, or they can get to you. So there was a lot that went into it. It isn't just it wasn't just the case of, I'm just going to go there just for the sake of pissing people off. So, but on the flip side of that, I know obviously there's a lot spoke about players should show loyalty and stuff like that. Well, works both ways. If they want you to show loyalty, the club have also got to show loyalty. So, which, as we are well aware, doesn't happen in football. So, you have to kind of look after yourself and deal with whatever you decide.
Let's finish on international football. Trying to quickly look how many caps you got for Northern Ireland. 35, 4 goals.
I think, yeah, goals against San Marino, Portugal, Greece, and Norway. So my Norway one was good. I liked that one. Nice finish. Should always score against San Marino, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
But it was listen, I should have had a lot more caps than I did, but that was my own fault that I didn't have more. I should easily have got to 50, but for friendlies I'd decide not to go because I didn't really want to travel or be away from the kids and stuff like that, and or I'd been out the night before and I just thought, I'm not getting up this early for the flight, and that's down to myself. And but the competitive matches, I couldn't get there quick enough. So for the friendlies, it was like I didn't really want to travel the world. So, but when it comes to competitive football, and because in the back of my mind as well, I'm always thinking about if I get injured in a friendly, it's just going to annoy me and do my head in. If I get injured in a competitive match, then I've got injured for a reason. So, just little things like that. And I had a spell of maybe 2 years out under Nigel Worthington where the lads decided to go on a night out. I decided to stay in because we had, I think it was Denmark on a Tuesday night, and if we'd have won that, we'd have had half a chance of still qualifying for the World Cup. And I thought, the lads didn't play well the week on the Saturday. I might have half a chance of playing here or at least getting some minutes. Anyhow, I didn't get out. I didn't get a minute. And then he rung me when I got back to England to ask who went out on the night out and stuff like that. Did you go out? I was like, no, I didn't go out. I stayed in. I didn't get called up for 18 months to 2 years. So I should have gone out. But I don't know what the reasoning behind it was. And do you know what? It didn't really bother me because I had like kids that were playing reserve team football for Rangers and Wolves that were getting on the pitch before me. And I was the first team player at Sheffield United starting games. So that was part of my reasoning behind it as well. And it's a little bit disrespectful to a certain extent, isn't it? When you've got someone playing and scoring in the Championship and someone in the reserve leagues getting on ahead of you.
So when you look back at your playing career, is it something you smile about?
Yeah, of course. I think if someone would have offered me that at the start of my career, I'd have obviously took it. My one dream was to play competitive football for Villa, playing the Premier League for them in front of the whole end. That was my dream as a kid. Obviously, I think we all dream of playing for England as well, but I got the next best option where my granddad was born in Northern Ireland, so I had the option to play for Northern Ireland. And my biggest highlight is Northern Ireland. Obviously, qualifying for Euro 2016. The journey on that was amazing. Then we got to the playoffs of the World Cup to qualify for that. Got absolutely stitched up by a dodgy penalty decision that hit Corey Evans on the back and the refs give a penalty. So, listen, over the 2 legs, Switzerland deserved to win and go through, but the aggregate score was 1-0. So that leaves a bitter taste in your mouth. But there was that 4-year period under Michael O'Neill where it was unbelievable. And that's the one thing that I always look back on my goals and stuff, and realise how fortunate and I was to actually make it as a professional footballer, because we see the percentages of people wanting to play and the reality of people actually playing it, and with that longevity as well, is slim these days, isn't it? So, and I think football careers are only going to get shorter these days.
Wardy, that was great. Thank you, and stay safe over there. Our next episode is out on April the 16th, and it'll be from our live event with Shane Nicholson. Look out for that one. And if you've missed any of our conversations so far with the likes of Phil Brown, Paul Simpson, Craig Bryson or Lee Camp, they're available wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks to the RamsTrust and to 7 Restaurant and Café Bar in Derby for supporting us, located on Derby's Pride Park. 7 is the leading destination for all-day dining, artisan coffee and handcrafted cocktails. With a focus on quality, seasonal ingredients and a welcoming atmosphere, 7 is where the community comes together to relax, connect and celebrate.
Life After the Rams is a Backpass production.